Leviticus 20:13. If a man has sexual relations with a man, as one does with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable. They are to be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads. And this is the good book? This is the book that people say brings morality? Screw that. Shout out to all those celebrating Pride this month. We will not tolerate that bigotry here. And if you think the Bible is right and homosexuality is wrong, call us because the show's starting right now. Woo! That is right, folks. Welcome to Talk Heathen. Today is Sunday, June 4th, 2023, and I am your host, Secular Rarity, and joining me today is the always amazing Christy Powell. What is up, brother?
Hey, man, you are starting out with one of the clobber verses, so we are bringing the hammers out early this Pride Month and ready to do it. I'm pumped up.
Yeah, and you know, I think we need that. I think that is something we need this Pride Month. We need to be a little bit more vocal. We need to be a little bit more strong. And if we got to bring out the hammer early, we got to bring out the hammer early.
Hey, the first Pride was a riot. You know, I'm not recommending pick up bricks. I'm saying be prepared for whatever comes because this shit matters.
Yep. And remember what has led us to this point. And I absolutely, I love when I hear people remind everybody, hey, remember what Stonewall was, right? Remember what Pride originally was. And unfortunately, it seems like we're back in this time where all of these theists throughout the United States are trying to get rid of separation of church and state, get rid of secular humanism and stuff, and just demonizing people for no other reason than, I'm just going to say it, Christy, for no other reason than a stupid book.
A bunch of Iron Age poetry written in a totally different part of the world somehow has to tell us who we can love and how we can love them.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah, I agree. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you know what? That's fine, because if you got a problem with it, folks, you know how to get a hold of us, and I'm going to remind you about that in just a second, because first I got to tell you, Talk Heathen is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And just as a reminder, Talk Heathen is a live call-in show, and we have open lines. We've already got a couple of good calls in, but we still have lines available. So if you don't like this stuff we're talking about here, where we say things like, you know, trans people are people, love is love. Yeah, stop being such an asshole to bisexuals. Like, if you don't like any of that, well, guess what? You can call us at 512-991-9242 or from your computer at tiny.cc/call-th, because I think Christy and I are ready for this. You know,
let's do it. Yeah,
we're ready. So before we grab some of these great calls, though, folks, you know, we always want to give you the results for last week's Talk Heathen to Me. And this one was fun because last week we asked you, what did the caller say to make Secular Rarity look like that? Yeah.
Great shot.
Yeah.
They always catch you in the right moment.
I know. We really do have the best crew who are just looking for every opportunity to find those weird faces that I make. But we are going to see what you all said. Number 3 from Han Van Os. I probably butchered that, but thank you so much for your comment. They said, they asked Secular Rarity to lift his scalp and be happy about it. Yeah, that's pretty fair. I think I have like a little bit of wiggle room up here. I don't know. It might be like
some space available.
Yeah. My skin's kind of stretchy. Number 2 from Tuttle. The caller said, look at the trees. I will be honest. That does it for me. Does it for me. Yeah. And finally, this week's number 1 answer from Christopher Parks. The caller said the Crusades were fine to make his face look like that. Yeah. That's another bad one too. I got to be honest. Did
you go to like parking lot crusades as a teenager? Was that like a youth group thing? Oh yeah. We totally unironically would call these like Friday night special gatherings where you're supposed to like bring everybody from their churches to your church because we're really like rallying the troops in this moment for a crusade.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we like had no idea why people thought that was uncomfortable or
So weird.
rude or
Right,
weird to
right,
invite
right,
them to.
right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's a
Like, hey
death
guys,
cult.
there's a lynching at my church. Y'all don't want to come to the lynching? Like,
Right.
come on.
Oh my gosh, it's a freaking death cult of hatred and just bad ideas. I really do. I stand by that, folks. I know, again, Christy and I are coming out hard in these first few minutes, but we absolutely are ready for these calls. So, but before we grab them, want to say once again, thank you everyone for those answers for last week. We, as always, have another prompt for you. And this week's prompt, I think, is going to be awesome. We would like for you to write a Bible verse that improves upon the Bible. So get your best answer below the video in the comments, and next week we will reveal the top 3. But Christy, I have to ask, what if you had to write a Bible verse that improves upon the Bible? What do you think it would say?
Well, I don't know how great this is, but if the bar is improve the Bible, I feel like
Pretty
that's
low.
easy to hit.
Yeah.
So what I've got here is, and verily the Lord said unto them, all of those other rules are great, but the most importantest rule is thou shalt not be an asshole nor a dick. Be they not straight nor queer, neither attractive nor unattractive to you. Beeth like totally chill about it.
The word of God for the people of God. I like it.
From my mouth to y'all's ears.
That's right. That's right, folks. I like it. I like it. And yeah, I think you're totally right, Christy. I think the bar is kind of low to accomplish this, but I am excited to see what our audience comes up with, because I know we always get such great comments from y'all. So remember, below the video in the comment section, throw your comment in there, and then next week we will read all of these better Bible verses because yeah, I'm confident we're going to get quite a few. Well, we have some calls. We got some good ones, and I think we are ready to get into them. But just as a reminder, folks, we still have lots of open lines for you. We want our theist friends out there who are disagreeing with us. We want you to come in and call us. Trust me, we'll be kind, we'll be nice. As long as you are also kind and nice. I feel like that's pretty reasonable, right? But 512-991-9242 or from your computer at tiny.cc/call-th. And we are going to go to Pennsylvania. We're going to talk with Chloe. She, her, is a theist and wants to talk to us about her deities and how her faith is not anti-queer. So, hey, Chloe, you're on with Christy and SR. What is up?
Not much. Just enjoying the show.
Thanks.
Used to be an atheist, and I do really support the work of the atheist community in Austin. So, hats off to you.
We appreciate that. Yeah, tell us about your faith and how your faith is a little bit different, it sounds like, from a lot of versions of Christianity and other, anti-queer faiths. So tell us about that, I guess, a little.
Oh, perfect. So the underlying problem is that I'm not even Christian. I'm pagan. I want to get this, you probably have pagans at least calling in at least a couple of months, every couple of months at least, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
you got to hear from us. You hear from us regularly.
Yeah, I'm not as well acquainted with it as I am with most Judeo-Christian religions, but definitely, I mean, being a queer therapist in Austin, Texas, I'm definitely interacting with a lot of pagans. I'll say that I think part of what is maybe challenging for me to understand about your belief system is that it's not super codified or nailed down, which bug feature, I don't know. But tell us about why you're calling, Chloe, and why that contrast is so significant to you.
So the contrast that's significant to me is that what brought me out of atheism into theism was transitioning. As you can tell by my voice, I'm pretty clockable. I'm transgender. I make no attempts to hide that fact, and I'm pretty stalwart about it.
Sure.
When I got on HRT, one of the things that they warn you about is that your feelings are going to change. And one of the things I did not realize was going to change for me was my feelings towards theism. You're going to get guys like Ocean Keltoy railing against people who calls quote unquote fluffy bunnies. And I love Keltoy to death. I am I am a big fan, big supporter. But it was a lot of the fluffy bunny stuff that I felt a lot of that gender affirmation from. And that gender affirmation, I really could not understand from a scientific point of view.
Sure,
So
I get that.
So you get that. So you get that. And a lot of that led me into the serious side and led me to seek out guys like Ocean Keltoy and away from the fluffy bunny stuff. And it is in the stories in Norse paganism that we have like Thor dressing in drag just to get his hammer back. Speaking of, breaking out the hammers. We have Odin learning a feminine type of magic called Seidr, which involves transmutating some in part or in all form into a woman. So that leads to a lot of gender questions among the Norse there. We have Loki, obviously, like well known for being extremely bisexual and extremely disaster bisexual. The reason why I'm calling is that for some of us theists, our queerness is directly linked into our faith.
Sure.
It is so interlocked into that faith. The only request I really have, the only thing I really want to debate you on is being more kind to faith as a whole, and really centering in on what is the problem, which is this Judeo-Christian ultra hardcore right wing. They're the problem. Like we can all agree they're the problem, right?
Yeah, I might push back on that piece of it, but sorry, let me let you jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in real quick, Chloe, because at the very least, I think this is deeply, deeply important that you called us today. And one of the big reasons I think that it's so important is because I always want to express to theists out there and to people who just aren't, necessarily in my, label camp, whatever, right? We can work together on so many issues that are of intense importance right here, right now, just like this, right? Like whether or not you believe in Loki, whether or not I don't, doesn't matter when it comes to us fighting for LGBTQ rights in the US, right? And I think that is incredibly important. And we need more theists out there to join those of us that are in the non-religious camp, because goodness gracious, just look at the numbers. When you actually look at the numbers, oddly enough, most of the people that are queer in this world are actually believers of some kind, because atheists are still a really small number, and we need to build that broad coalition and keep it as strong as possible. With all of that being said, I always love those opportunities where we can come together and disagree about, nuanced positions and do so cordially. And I would say that when you said that point about like faith as a whole isn't really the problem, I would say, depending on how you're defining what faith is, I would say that faith is the problem. Like that is the crux of the issue in my eyes for so much of this. And again, I think that even though that's deeply important to me on a lot of levels, I also think that that is something that we can hardcore, knock out, drag down, just beat each other up verbally in the debate arena on that, and then still stand up from the table and go stand at the front line and protest all of this garbage that we're seeing that is anti-queer right now, but I do just think it's worth pointing out that where we connect and where we're on the same page. And then, I still have my problems with some faith and stuff. I still have my problems with the pagan understanding and things. But I am much more focused, I think, in these moments of saying like, hey, let's work together as much as we can because of honestly just the toxic garbage that seems to be spewing out of some people's mouth in the US right now. So, but real quick, Chloe, before we give it back to you, I want to hear what Christy's thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I line up with a lot of what you are both sort of saying, which is that, all right, just because you're religious doesn't mean you're anti-queer, and that's great. I would much rather have a pro-queer religion than an anti-queer religion. But the problem for me, so to speak, is still the idea that religion is something that we don't apply the same rationality, the same wise-minded type of thinking to as we do other aspects of life. And so we have the potential, the possibility of being taken over to a faith where we do believe in things that are really painful and problematic. Like going to the store and saying, okay, I bought a religion, but don't worry, it's a pro-queer religion, doesn't make me feel a whole lot better, because even though there is not that like anti-LGBT violence inherent in it, you're still shopping in the wrong store. You're still using a skill set that can lead you into some very dangerous directions. I mean, does that feel at all fair to say, Chloe?
Well, what I would say to you is that the part of Pennsylvania I'm in Philadelphia, and what I would say is that you wouldn't judge all sports you wouldn't judge all sports fans based on how Philly fans act or how soccer hooligans act. As a whole, and these are clearly problems. These are clearly, destruction of property, people climbing on poles, people getting drunk, people beating the crap out of each other. Clearly,
this is without even talking about Penn State and Sandusky, and there's problems with sports fanaticism. Hooliganism can be dangerous.
There's problems with sports fanaticism, but you wouldn't throw out all of sports, because then you would lose Hoosiers, you'd lose Ted Lasso, you would lose.
Chloe, can I just jump in for a second? And because I do like that analogy, at least to a little bit. But I wanna focus us a bit more, because and Christy, please, if I'm wrong on this, you jump in. But I think more so what Christy and I are saying is not necessarily that we're judging the sports as a whole because of the fans' actions. We're saying, I know I'm saying this, I think Christy is on this too, that there is something inherent about sports itself that is problematic.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I have a little bit of trouble with the analogy, because it is different. Faith is more of this prescription thing, whereas sports is more of just this kind of like generalized concept that we just put stuff into for our own purposes. Right. But like at its core, the whole thing about faith, right, is kind of like believing stuff without necessarily having good justification. And we could say, hey, faith and trust are the same thing. We can talk about that. My argument with that would just be like, why have different words then, unless we're not trying to get across different understandings, right? That's why we have a word for cup, and then we have a word for mug. Like, are they pretty much the same thing? Yeah, totally. But also they are different in ways that matter. And I think the way that it matters when it comes to faith is, again, kind of like what Christy was saying. It seems to be we take just this one category of life and we apply this one method to it, and then we never do that in anywhere else in life. And that's where I think the issue is. Does that kind of make sense?
That makes sense to me, but what I think you're missing, and why I thought sports was a valid analogy here, is that I think that there's a lot of things that we do in our lives generally that serve no rational purpose, but serve emotional purposes and serve cultural purposes.
Yeah, I don't know how distinct those really are, but it could take us hours to tease all of that out. Let me let you continue.
Yeah. But you got to admit that this is a more interesting conversation than whether or not queers are valid.
Oh, yeah. Christy, I think Christy, Chloe, the three of us, we've already settled that. It's like, oh, hell yeah. Why are we talking about this still? Are there assholes out there that are saying otherwise? Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I'm loving this conversation. So.
But like, my only thing I really want to get across is that I really do think that I don't think you should really totally soften your language. I think that the language should just be more thoughtful and considered.
Well, I gotta say, Chloe, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Only to the degree that it's been shown to you. Only to the degree that it's been shown to you, which is just, it's a little bit, and just maybe try to soften things a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am always a big fan of cordial communication, challenging discussions, right? Difficult conversations to be had where we're both laying out our ideas and hashing stuff out, but doing so in a way that really is friendly. All that being said, though, and we have touched on it a little bit tonight, but I do think it's worth saying again, which is, if you're in a conversation with somebody where they are repeatedly demonizing you, they are repeatedly saying that you don't exist, you don't have to be, don't be a fucking part of that conversation. I mean, yeah. I've cussed a lot today because I get fired up about this. So, but I seriously, like, don't be a part of that conversation. You absolutely do not owe anybody anything close to that, and flip them off and walk away happy. But yeah, I'm a big believer in, as much as we can, being kind to each other and being compassionate with each other, especially because I think one of the things that really throws like a hardcore bigot or fundamentalist like through a loop is when they meet somebody who's trans and that person is just like the coolest person ever. They are just a really, really good person, and they can't justify that because their head's going through this, messed up contortion of garbage where it's like, oh, I was told that gay people are horrible and they're all just debaucherous and oh my gosh, how is this a good person? I love to see people scrambling when they meet somebody and the person just casually says like, oh yeah, I'm a lesbian and I'm atheist, and the person is like, oh my, but you're a good person. So yeah, I love that. I love killing people with kindness if possible. So before we let you go, Chloe, Christy, do you have anything else you wanna wrap us up on?
No, I think that really hits it all. Just that it's important to remember that, yeah, we can come to the same conclusions about a number of issues, and that's great. And we can get along around all of that. But there is still meaningful value in us doing these programs and trying to encourage the world to think critically, to think skeptically, because that is our best protection against anti-queer religion and a number of other pieces of shit that we really shouldn't be participating in or a part of. So I appreciate, Chloe, that you aren't holding those types of beliefs. I just hope that you hold every belief with a sense of like skepticism and curiosity, and above all else, a concern for your fellow human. So thanks so much for the call. I came into this secular atheist, so I knew exactly what to expect.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Chloe. And seriously, give us a call back in the future, because we would absolutely love to talk more about your queer deities, how you understand them, how you got to that conclusion and stuff. But in the meantime, keep fighting the good fight, and we'll be right standing next to you. So yeah, thank you so much. And I'm glad we started off on a call like that. Yeah. I'm happy about that, because I love to take that opportunity and say, look, we can get here and we can get in our groups and we can share the memes and make fun of this stupid holy book and stuff. We could do all that, but I love those moments when we can reach across ideological divides and say like, no, I'm done letting people run roughshod over other people's rights.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm always happy for that. So,
well, I think it's worth saying that, myself as a queer person, I think most of the queer people in this audience, probably everybody in the audience, honestly, can relate to the idea of better understanding their own sexuality, their own orientation, their own identity through fiction, through literature. And if that comes with an idea of like meditation or prayer or some of these notions of like focused attention in that way, fantastic. Yeah. I appreciate that Chloe's had that experience. I just, would want there to be a recognition that these are fictional characters.
Yeah, same. Well, I have a couple of awesome super chats all ready to read. But before we do that, let me talk to you about some of the ways you can support Talk Heathen and the ACA. There is a new limited edition t-shirt, folks. This one is cool. It is a quote from Voltaire. It says, "Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities." I love it. I love that quote. Voltaire's got some great stuff. So go visit tiny.cc/merchaca and you can get that awesome shirt now and lots of other great stuff, by the way. And remember, go ahead and like the video if you haven't already and subscribe to the channel, enable the notifications, and comment below on your favorite caller, things you like, things you didn't. Guys, it takes no effort on your part. It takes no effort on your part. Hit that freaking like and subscribe. It's so easy. It's so easy. Do it. Christy's going to be sad. I'm going to be sad if you don't. Come on. You can also, if you want to go the extra mile, you can become a channel member by clicking that join button below the video, and you will get custom chat emotes, and you will help perpetuate the mission of Talk Heathen and the atheist community of Austin. I think both myself and Christy are down there in little face format. So please just feel free to just, smatter those all over the chat and show all the non-members what they are missing out on. And finally, you can send a super chat with a question or comment, and we will read as many as we can, which is a good segue into our first one, $9.99 from Greg Markowski, saying people should leave each other alone and let everyone peacefully live their lives. Thanks for the show, Christy and SR. You make the world better. Thank you so much, Greg. You are always out there helping. Then we have $10 from Thomas Watcher saying, my wife and I met SR at NanoCon. We both agree that he is one of the kindest, nicest, sweetest persons. Thank you. Thank you so much, Thomas. Yeah, I know. And I remember meeting you and your wife, man. That was a wonderful time. And yeah, definitely. I can't wait to meet more people in this community. I actually got to hang out. This is just a real quick tangent, just because I want to say it. I got to hang out with my buddy, Dr. Ben, the other day, because he was traveling through and stuff. And I love that dude. And there are so many great people in this community, and it's so awesome to meet people and get to connect. And yeah, just a bunch of really good folks. And finally, $19.99 from Janet Moorcraft. Christy and SR, thank you for who you are and lighting up my day. Please remind pet owners to play with their pets. Remember, they need us and love us. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you have a pet, go give it some love. What are you doing? Take a second. It takes no effort. After you like and subscribe to this channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, go love on your pet a little bit. So easy, folks. So easy.
And just as an aside, pets are welcome at Pride. Throwing that out there for those who need to hear it.
Yeah, heck yeah. Very good. Very awesome. Well, folks, we are filling up with some calls, and I am excited because I think we've got some good things to talk about today. So how about we go out to Texas? We've got Emmanuel, he, him, and has an objection to the LGB movement, it sounds like. Hey, Emmanuel, you're talking with SR and Christy Powell. What you got for us?
How are you guys?
Pretty good.
What's on your mind?
I have a question to secular Rarity.
Sure.
So let's say I don't drink alcohol, right? And you like drinking alcohol. If I say that drinking alcohol is bad, am I attacking you personally, or does it mean I hate you, or does it mean that I object to your actions?
It depends, I would say, on a couple of different factors,
yeah.
But I can just go ahead and step past most of those to give you as many toys to play with, so we can kind of move through this. And I would just say there's a massive difference between certain actions that we take as people that are preferable to us and the core identity of who we are, right? And I think that's probably the issue with this analogy that you're going for, because it sounds to me like you're trying to go down a route of saying, if I say being homosexual is bad or wrong, is that me attacking you? That kind of seemed like what you were trying to go with. And I don't want to straw man you anything, Emmanuel. So is that ringing true? Is that kind of the reason you put the whole alcohol thing up is to equate it to homosexuality in that way?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I would just say that I would just to reiterate, I would say that the big problem with thinking about it in that way, in my opinion, is you're coming at it from this angle as if tomorrow somebody who is bisexual could just stop. Right. And that just isn't the case. Just flat out, there's no debate on that in any sphere that I know of, other than the religious space, which doesn't have any justification or reason behind it, other than just we want to be bigots. So,
well, and even if we take it further than that, even if we are willing to sort of play this game of, is homosexuality a choice or an identity, which we have long since disproven, but even if we are playing with those toys, if you say that like playing golf is bad, you have some valid points. We can talk about golf's problematic environmental and economic impact and the history of the sport and some of the practices that have been involved with it. But to say golf is bad, or like all golfers should go to hell, or by playing golf is bad, and we start to blend these ideas of what is just sort of my opinion of something that I don't personally enjoy versus what I think is morally evil. If we're trying to tell people that who they love and how they love them is morally evil, I don't care if they have the ability to stop doing it. Fuck you for having an opinion. Like, you're not invited to that conversation.
I think that's a great freaking point. Yeah. What do you think on that, Emmanuel?
Christy, I would like to respond to Christy Powell if I can. So, first of all, like, I don't think that it's a choice. I never said that. What I
get that.
Was I think people like can love each other without having any kind of like intimate relationship, right? So
depends on how we define the word intimate. I think that if you love somebody, that's an intimate thing.
Generally.
But it doesn't have to be sexual in nature. It doesn't have to be romantic in nature.
Yeah.
So what I am saying is like, first of all, the first thing that I don't agree in those arguments is I don't believe that it is like you can't like overcome it. I think there is
you can be gay and just not have sex with your same gender. That's possible to do, but again, why?
What's
the good reason for that? What's all of the human suffering, all of the missed opportunities, all of the pain and loneliness, the shame, the guilt, the mental distress, the thing that people come to me and pay me all this money and put all their time and energy and heartbreak into trying to heal from? What is our reason for allowing that to be a thing?
Yeah, if you're legitimately taking the stance, Emmanuel, that it's okay if somebody is gay, let's say, but as long as they don't do the gay, it's like that seems to me that what you are adding onto that is so much harm and baggage and like all of this other stuff going on this, when at the end of the day we haven't even justified why doing gay things is a problem, right? Like you're down like 5 or 6 bullet points when there's so much work that needs to be done to begin with, like, right? Like if what you're saying is the reason I think it's wrong to be gay or commit homosexual acts is such a weird way. That's the way the Bible says it, but
I'm a problem by doing the gay.
Right. If that's your line of thought on this, if all of that stems from your belief in this deity that exists and laid out these rules or stuff, like, you have to recognize that the majority of your work is actually in the justification for the deity and the rules that have been laid out, not like this other stuff down here. That doesn't make any sense. I just, it's confusing to me, I guess. And back to what Christy said earlier, like, what the fuck does it matter to you? Like, if you're a man and you don't want to have sex with a man, I'm going to throw this out. I will give you permission. You don't have to.
We support you in that.
Yeah, we support you, man. No worries. Like, no problem. But yeah, sorry, we've been rambling. Give us some thoughts.
First of all, I have compassion, like, to old people. So, first of all, I think it's against the law to be in a homosexuality activity. So if it's against the law,
like, do you mean like the law as in like the United States or like various states and stuff? It says you're calling from Texas. Do you think in Texas there's a law that says you can't be gay? I mean, I know Texas is getting bad, but I didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah, we don't say that part out loud anyway. It's not on the books.
Right.
1 Timothy 1:10. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, so you're talking about God's law. Right. So we're back to that point, which I think is really important because the problem
people should suffer because God wrote a law.
Right.
Prove to me that God wrote a law or that I should give a shit about it.
Exactly. And that is super, super huge. And so you have to prove that the God exists. Okay. Then you have to prove why we should care if God makes laws. Then you have to prove that you got the laws correct. How do you know that? How are you confident that the mind of God is something that you as a fallible human could ever understand to the point to say, you know what I think? I think the all-powerful creator of the world really hates lesbians. That's what I think. How did you come to that, man? What process?
I don't think he hates anybody. What I think is, like, for example, me being attracted to women is unpleasing to God itself. So there is no sexual identity that God.
Wait. Did you just say the heterosexual attractions you have are problematic in God's eyes?
Of course, because when you go to Matthew 5:27, it says, if you lust after women, it's against God, right? So there is no orientation.
So it does say that, but it does also talk about how God is pretty explicit about the whole I made the man and the woman thing to go together to do the stuff. Like, God's pretty particular about making sure that his chosen people continue to make babies.
Bosoms like palm trees, like the whole thing. God is pro heterosexual sex for most of the Bible, or at the very least really loves to elevate people to like 600 wife status. So
exactly. So
if you're
like
God's favorite and you're having a lot of heterosexual sex, it's hard for me to really take you seriously when you say God is against that. But all of this feels very far afield because I'm talking a lot about the thought processes of a figure whose existence I don't acknowledge. So help me, Emmanuel, before we step away. I don't believe that there is a God. I don't believe that the Bible is the word of God. And I don't believe that I need to care about anything these imaginary gods say or do. So please, just final question. All of that pain and distress that is caused by gay people, quote, not being gay or not acting on that gayness, what is its function? Why should people make that sacrifice or have that suffering?
Okay, so I would love to answer your question.
I'd love for you to answer my question.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because particular Rarity asked me, how do you justify God made male and female? It's talking about marriage. It's not talking about fornicators that are having sex outside of marriage.
I don't know.
Except for all the unmarried ones in the Bible. But again,
I don't know.
I just had the
David.
one question, if I can, and then we'll maybe wrap this up.
Yeah, let's get to Christy's question if you don't mind for us, Emmanuel.
So the reason I think, Christy, I think, life is short. Like for us to live for our passionate things or our, earthly desires. I think the basic thing that we could get from life is the life that is after, which is the kingdom of God. So if God, in his words, prohibits certain actions, I think we should come to Christ so that we could overcome.
I think you're stacking on BS on top of BS, and you've
Right.
just got a mountain right now that you haven't done any due diligence to pick apart and understand what is actually supporting this house you're trying to
I
build.
think
There's a certain internal logic, and I can
Yeah.
appreciate that if I
Sure.
really believed that instead of not existing for like 7 billion years or whenever
Yeah.
the universe formed, I barely understand the physics of all this, but you're right, life is very short. Like I've got maybe 100 years after billions of years of non-existence, and then there will be billions more years of non-existence. If I maybe take your model and I say that there is an entire eternity, then that 100 years does seem pretty insignificant.
Yeah.
But if you look at my model, which has some rational basis to it and is not built on ancient poetry, you'll see that I have that 100 years, and that's all I get.
Yeah.
And so I want to live it up. I want to fuck around. I want to find out. I want to, see the world and enjoy life as much as possible. And I don't want to sacrifice all of my intimate desires, all of my romance, all of my sexuality, all of my identity, all of my personal expression just to get some reward from some sadistic bigot who doesn't exist. I know that's all very strong language, Emmanuel, and I recognize how a lot of this might put you on your heels, but I would really challenge you to get underneath some of these things. I see how a lot of your points follow from your other points, but it's all built on a house of sand. And I would challenge you to answer the fundamental question of, is there a God? And how do I know that? And try to build from there.
There is how we know that there's a God is like, how I know
is like a question that we've gone into over and over and over on this show. I think that you can save that one for another day, but work on that one.
Yeah, I think Emmanuel, call us back in the future. Think some more on, go back. I want people to do this when they call. Go back and watch this over again, folks, and listen to yourself. I do that with stuff all the time. Yeah. It is super duper helpful. Like, because especially in, difficult conversations that are just spur of the moment extemporaneous stuff, like, you mess up every now and then, and that's okay. Go listen to it, think about it, and give us another call and see if maybe you have some better answers for Christy. Even if we get to the acceptance that some deity of some kind exists, I don't know how we ever get to the place of saying we're confident these are the people that he hates. Like I seriously don't. That's not me saying it can't happen because I can't think of anything. That's not what I'm saying, folks. But I truly, like, call if you have an answer for that. Call, because how the hell do you ever figure out what the mind of God is? To the specific point, by the way, that God seems to be okay with incest and genocide and slavery, but not two women having sex? That's just fascinatingly confusing to me. So, but before we grab another call, I am going to tell you about some wonderful ways you can support this beautiful channel. You can support us on Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonTH. And we always read out those top 5 people. So if you would like to be on that list, that is how you do it. And we have a channel that houses all of the shows of the ACA in audio podcast form. Visit tiny.cc/AEN podcasts, folks. They are going all the time. And honestly, it's great to like have in the background if you're like working out or, cleaning around the house, or again, standing at a pride parade or a protest against this anti-LGBT garbage. So not saying you have to do that, of course, just saying one can listen to these podcasts in all of those places. You can also become a part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan-run Facebook page at tiny.cc/FBTHG. There is always a bunch of wonderful people out there hashing it out, talking God, talking not God, all the things that honestly are fun. I mean, I love the crap out of it. So if you do too, that's a good place for you. And if you didn't know, Talk Heathen has a TikTok, and we will be going live before the shows on Sunday. So if you haven't already, go subscribe and join in on the pre-show on the Talk Heathen TikTok. I know our good friend, the Richard Gilliver, was out doing it today. He always has some spicy things. He's a very intelligent man, and we tolerate him. We do. We tolerate him. So anyway, we've got some other calls, folks, but we still have time for sure. So remember, 512-991-9242 or from your computer at tiny.cc/call-th. We are going to go talk with Paul. Him is a theist in Texas. And yeah, I think you're going to talk with us a little bit about the beginning of the universe today. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you? And yeah, I didn't know there was a specific topic at hand, or I might have addressed that. But
no, all good.
I'd like to address something from the first call, if I may first. But
if we can,
yeah,
Paul, let's start with your topic, and we'll go through that. And if we still have some time, because we do have some other people on the line, I want to be respectful to them. So let's go with your topic first, and if we have some time at the end, be happy to.
All right, awesome. I just wanted to see what you guys thought about stuff like the Kalam argument, the cosmological argument, and just things like that. And if you believe that the universe had a beginning, just to ask that question right out.
Sure. Christy, do you want to take a whack at that first?
Yeah, I mean, from as well as I understand it, the universe as we know it had a beginning point. What came before that, I have no way of knowing. Was it a big nothingness? Was it anything at all? Really hard to say. I'm certainly not a physicist, and I would, challenge anybody listening to this to not take the word of a mental health clinician on issues of like physics. But yeah, sure. As far as I understand it, the universe had a beginning. We're in something of a middle, and it'll have an end. And then maybe there was something before the beginning and after the end, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I would say I can co-sign on that pretty easily. And just to touch on like the Kalam or just cosmological arguments in general, I just don't find them to ultimately have the soundness part, right? Like they can be valid, they can be correct in form, and that is important. Obviously, it's the first thing you have to get nailed down. But without the support for the premises themselves, it's tough to it's tough to accept that, right? Because we just don't have any reason to accept some of those. And the basic Kalam in and of itself doesn't really take us very far. As somebody who is, methodologically materialist, as somebody who is, in general naturalist, atheist, those types of things, one could just grant that there is some necessary something, like, and then move on from there. So we still haven't gotten to God.
Right. But to me, it's really irrational to believe that, of course, everything came from nothing. And I guess it is rational to say that you don't know, but the Kalam is a very old argument.
Well, hang on real quick, Paul. Hang on real quick. I hate having to defend William Lane Craig, but no, that's okay. But I hate having to defend William Lane Craig, but I would like to point this out. William Lane Craig invented the Kalam Cosmological Argument. It is a specific argument in the style of cosmological arguments. So the Kalam argument itself is actually not very old. It only dates back to like the 70s or 80s, but he is basing that argument on the general category of cosmological arguments, which dates back to Al-Ghazali. But there's also a reason why those arguments have continually been, reconfigured and stuff, because they haven't proven to be very effective for most people.
The age of it doesn't mean a whole lot about the veracity of it anyway, but I think those are meaningful points. So, Paul, what is it that you are really trying to get at here? Is the notion that because we don't know how the universe started, therefore God? Is there more complexity to it, or is that it?
Yeah, there is. I think the cosmological argument is just the first step to know that there is an unmoved mover, whether that be the Christian God, Muslim God, or any God, just a deity. There has to have been an unmoved mover. And
does it have to be a deity, though?
Of the conclusion.
Does it have to be a deity?
Something. It wasn't nothing. It wasn't nothing that created something.
Okay, let's go with that for a second, Paul.
This is just the first part.
Yeah, let's go with that. We'll just say Christy and I are there with you. We're still on the train. Take us to God from here.
All right. Well, I know you guys have a limited amount of time on this call.
Yeah, but we got a few minutes, man. We'll let you go for a few minutes if you lay it out. So,
I mean, all right. I don't mean to copycat. But I was inspired by you guys. If you know William Lane Craig, you probably know Dr. Frank Turek, which is, not as renowned as William Lane Craig, but definitely has his easy points that I think lead to the conclusion. Now, obviously, if your heart is hardened, as Christians say, then, you're not going to be led down that path either way.
Do you know what the term poisoning the well is, Paul? Do you know what that term means? Have you ever heard somebody say that?
I don't know how really this applies to what I just said, but go ahead.
Well, because what you just said was poisoning the well. You said, if my argument doesn't work, then the reason is because you weren't going to accept it anyway, basically. You said, if Christy and my hearts are hardened, then we're not going to follow you on the argument. And I just feel like that's a little bit of an unfair way to have this conversation. So the issue, Paul, is if I took this call and started it off with something like, all right, Christy and I are ready to take Paul from Texas, him, who probably is going to have bad arguments and won't listen to us anyway. Like, that would be a really shitty way to have this conversation, man. So like, I don't think the idea of like our hearts being hardened, comes into play here. I would definitely say myself, I love this term, which is a non-resistant non-believer. I'm not fighting this belief. If I get good evidence, I will absolutely live on air today hold my Bible proudly in my hands and say that I believe it. So, lay it out for us, man. We still got some time. I still think we can have, a good call here. So lay it out for us, Paul. We're with you on the basic. There had to be something that started it. Christy and I aren't yet at the, hey, that was a God thing. So how do we get there? We will definitely give you some time to lay it out for us.
All right. So again, I don't mean to copycat, but inspired from Dr. Frank Turek would be the three main points, starting with the cosmological argument, the second being the theological argument, the design, how there's inherently design and things we still can't explain through science, which I don't have a found grasp on, but, I know enough to know what I believe. And also the third point would be
there it is.
And how you would have to sit in the lap of God to essentially slap him in the face.
I love that line from Frank Turek. It's really nonsensical. So let me just make sure we're following along with you, Paul. So the first thing you said is the Kalam, okay? And then the second thing you said is teleology, which is like the idea of there is a destination that already exists for everything. Right. I'm just breaking it down for viewers who aren't familiar with that term. And then the third one you said is morality. Is that right? Those three things get us to God exists. Just making sure we're on the same page.
Those are more bullet points, but it's like I'm just like simplifying it down into one word.
Yeah.
Each be lectures.
Yeah. I understand that, Paul. I understand that. We're just neither of us are super high level apologists or theological whatevers. I don't have some PhD up here about theology or anything. We're good. We're just talking casually here, man. So if any one of those three are negated, like let's say I could prove to your satisfaction that what you're saying about teleology just isn't real. It's just not true. Would you stop believing in God?
I think you're kind of playing on the hardened thing that I said, and
I'm not.
agree that
I'm not. I'm asking a very.
And
I'm
the
asking a
part where
very-
you said that you knew what you believed, even though you didn't know the words to explain what you
Right.
believed. He's asking you to explain what you believed. It's part of our whole "what do you believe and why? Call us and tell us about it"
Yes.
agreement inherent in this show. And Paul, I'm only making such a point of pointing that out to show you how slippery a lot of your logic is. Even if all of these points you're making are valid, every single time SR tries to get you to nail one of them down, well, no, I'm just shorthanding it. We're rushing through this here. We keep saying there's a little bit of time on the clock. I don't want to spend all day here,
Right.
but can we find one thing to spend some time on and nail to a wall?
All right, well, fine. We can go with morality, the point of morality.
Sure.
And
So real quick though, real quick again,
from Frank.
let's get a starting point, okay? Let's get a baseline here, Paul, because all we're trying to do thus far is actually get to the conversation, okay? Christy and I are just making sure that we are not straw manning you. We are just making sure that we are following along and understand what is actually going to be worthwhile for all of us in this conversation. So the question has to be asked, because we're talking about morality specifically now. And the question has to be asked, if I could prove to your satisfaction that what you currently believe about morality is not true, would that change your belief in God?
Well, I would say to this that I used to believe in subjective morality and not believe in God, and then I came to God. So I feel like to switch back is hard for my mind to grasp, but I can try to go hypothetically. Yes, hypothetically.
Okay. Perfect. I love that. I love that. And I'm so glad that that's where you are. And here is why I was harping on this, Paul, because that is deeply, incredibly important. Next time you're watching Frank Turek, next time you're listening to somebody like William Lane Craig, watch their response to that question and see if you think that their response is fair. If you, Paul, are willing to play this game with us today and say, hey, if you could, to my satisfaction, prove incorrect one of these points, if you could actually do that, hypothetically, I don't think it's going to happen, but theoretically, hell yes, I would change my position. That is an incredibly honest, that is a absolutely fantastic. I'm shaking. I'm so excited. And I don't hear that often from theists. And I especially don't hear that from people like Frank Turek, William Lane Craig, and many others. And I think that's a really, really telling thing, that you are more willing to change your mind if presented with evidence than the people that you are using their arguments. You're saying their arguments convinced you. But with all of that, we are finally at the point of the conversation. And here is my question. How do you know your system of morality that you currently accept comes from God of any kind? How have you determined that? What is the method?
All right, I want to make a quick point on what you said about how I would change my mind. Hypothetically, yes, I would, but I also want to speak to the point. I've heard Matt Dillahunty, Christopher Hitchens say that if the Christian God, or any God, specifically the Christian God, was real, even if he was, they still wouldn't believe in him. So
they wouldn't worship.
They wouldn't worship it.
Yeah, they wouldn't worship and follow the laws. I don't think any of, and again, I don't know because I'm not speaking for Matt Dillahunty or Christopher Hitchens or anything, but I can tell you, I have never seen them say they wouldn't accept the belief. I've heard them say they wouldn't worship. I have, on the other hand, heard people like Frank Turek and William Lane Craig absolutely say that they will not change their positions.
Because they're thoroughly convinced. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
like,
No,
the
it's
fact-
because they see the God of the Bible as an asshole.
given-
So even if we accepted as a thought experiment that the God of the Bible was real, that being would not be worthy of worship. I think that that is a kind of significant part of this conversation, but it's very separate from the ultimate question that SR is asking you.
Yeah. And again, I do think it's deeply
prove
important.
that he's
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can prove that he's worthy of worship, and I know that atheists have their certain points of slavery. The three are slavery, homosexuality, which is the topic at hand, and genocide.
Yeah, those are three good ones. Those are three good reasons to think that the God of the
Yeah.
Bible is a bigoted
Probably not.
asshole.
Probably not great.
Let's just start with those three.
Literally, no. All right, yeah, okay. So the first one, genocide. A lot of atheists. I'm going to use one example. There can be multiple, but I'm going to use one example: the Canaanites. God told the Israelites, to go in the town and don't leave anybody alive.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Except the little
God
girls that hadn't
is
had
not
sex.
A mafia boss. Yes, yeah. God is not a mafia boss. All right.
Okay.
He does not sit here and say, "Go kill the Canaanites, all the gay people, go to hell." He doesn't. He's not a mafia boss. All right. He's a timeless, spaceless entity. All right. He's not on that.
So let me stop you here, Paul. Let me stop you here, Paul, because we're getting just a little bit off of the track, and I want to get to the heart of it here. Okay. You said one of the reasons that you accept God existing, you worship, you're the follower, the whole 9, 12, 100 yards. I don't know how many yards these days, but however long, you're saying the whole kit and caboodle comes down to these points. And one of them specifically is morality. And here's a question. We didn't answer the other question about how you figured this out, but that's fine. Maybe we'll get back to that. Here's my question. Is there ever a justification for genocide or slavery in your moral system that comes from God? Is there ever a justification for those actions? Yes or no?
The problem with that is an atheist cannot justify
nope. So once again,
there's really only one good answer to the question of can
really
slavery be justified?
There really is.
It's not one that you should want to struggle with. Try again. Keep trying, please.
Let's one more time, Paul. Okay, and just real quick, Christy and I will play this together. Okay. Hey, Christy, in your moral system, is there ever a justification for genocide or slavery?
No, there's not.
Yep. Same here.
No matter how many buttons you put on it, I'm not really sure how you could ever get there.
It never works. It absolutely never works in my system. So, Paul, yes or no, in your system of morality, is it ever justified genocide and slavery?
I'm getting cut off here, and my point is being missed. But my point is that atheists cannot.
Is your point a yes or a no?
Your point is that you weren't listening, Paul, and we want to have these conversations. We really, really do. Like, I think this is incredibly important. And I think that there's a lot of stuff out there that you do actually know a little bit more on. You said earlier that you couldn't necessarily articulate some things, but you knew it still. And you know what? My feeling on that is pretty simple, which is, the reason you know a lot of this stuff is because deep inside of you, just as a person, just this awesome little bag of meat that's evolved over a really, really long time, we've developed some really cool natural things inside of us. And when we see other people getting hurt, we go, my gosh, that's just terrible. That's so bad. We don't like that, And it's only when somebody else comes in and says, hey, disregard those feelings. Disregard those feelings for this bad reason. That's when you start to get confused about stuff. But yeah, I gotta say, Christy, I am frustrated that we didn't get an answer, yes or no. Like, I really, really wanted to hear whether or not slavery and genocide were justified at all in his system.
Yeah.
But
I know that can
Yeah.
feel like sort of a gotcha question, and he even raised that as an issue that atheists do, and that's valid to a certain extent, but also, is slavery okay? It should be one of those questions that you're just prepared for
Right.
at all times, especially if you're
Right.
going to bring up the issue of morality and some of these other things. So,
Right.
yeah, it's hard to defend any belief system that doesn't readily recognize that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, I don't think it is a gotcha question. Just like I don't think the question about, if I could prove this to your satisfaction to be untrue, like, would you change your mind? I think that is just a foundational question we have
Sure.
to ask ourselves in these conversations. And yeah, like you said, like, if that question of whether or not those types of atrocities are justifiable in your system, if it takes you a while to answer that question, I really do think you're going to want to.
You're off track.
Yeah, you're going to want to look into it some more.
Well, I hate to pile on after we've hung up
Yeah.
and these different things. I don't want to be a jerk about it, but I have to ask myself, like, what does it feel like to take that clip of yourself where you thought you were gonna like own some atheists and you were gonna like win some street cred and tell everybody how great your arguments are? Can you imagine showing that clip of yourself to your mother, to your romantic partner, like to your best friend? Because I hope that we can expect a little bit of growth from that caller, and that 5 years from now, that clip will feel as cringy to them as it does to us right now.
Absolutely. That is a great place to end, Christy. And Paul, please call us back. Call us again in the future. We really do want to have these conversations. And I do think they are important. I think they really, really matter. So yeah, please watch that clip again. Call us back. Go hit us up on the Fan Run Facebook or the Talk Heathen TikTok, please. And we want to have these conversations, and I'd love to hash this out more. So, but before we grab some other good calls here, folks, I am going to tell you about something. I don't know if you're aware, folks. Okay, this is incredible. It happens every day, every Sunday, 3 p.m. Central Time. The newest episode of the flagship show of the ACA, the Nonprofits, will be airing live. tiny.cc/YTNP. So if you are not already familiar with this awesome show and a fantastic group of hosts, well, good. Here's your chance. So it's going to happen like right after this show, and then you just go over there. Really simple. And then you watch a great show and you have an awesome time, and then you come back for AXP. Like, this is great. I just
boom.
Yeah, this is very simple. These are very, very easy things to follow, folks. Also, the ACA wants you to know what is going on in our community. And for that, we have an updated website. So head over to www.atheist-community.org, and you can learn about the organization itself, its policies, and how you can get involved. And in fact, we've actually had a couple of new people over the last few months, and it has been amazing. So yeah, we are always looking for volunteers. So if you would like to come help out this ragtag group of heathens and blasphemers, we would love it. And finally, we do want to hear from you. We want to know what you liked, what you thought was effective, and more importantly, what you thought we could do better. So email us at tv@atheist-community.org and let us know. All right. Okay. Let's see here. Nope. You know what? Before we take the next call, we got to shout out the patrons. We got to shout out the patrons. All right, let's do it. Let's see. We've got number 1, Dingleberry Jackson. As always, we appreciate you. Number 2, we've got Ayame. Wonderful again. Number 3, Oops, All Singularity. I really do love that name. Whoever you are.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, that was awesome. Number 4, Devor Valjan. And number 5, Kalevi Helveti. Those are some absolutely wonderful people that have been in those spots for a while, and we greatly appreciate their support. And an honorable mention to Justin. Thank you so much. And folks, don't forget tiny.cc/PatreonTH, and you can have one of the great Talk Heathen hosts poorly pronounce your name. So come up with something difficult to say, and we will stumble through it and look silly. But I guess let's go out all the way to Kenya. We're going to talk with Victor, he, him. That you have some questions, I think, about trans identities and kind of what all that means, I guess. So, hey, how's it going?
Hey guys, hi, I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good.
What can we help you understand? What can we break down for you?
Okay, yeah, cool. So I'm an atheist, so technically agnostic. And I've been working through the logic of supporting gay rights and everything, and that seems pretty reasonable and logical to me. But I can't seem to get past the hurdle of trans people and non-binary people. And that's because for me, I hold a belief that we shouldn't have strict gender roles. So I ask myself the question, if we don't have gender roles, should we still have trans and non-binary people? Like, would those be incompatible ideas?
It's an interesting thought experiment, but we do have gender roles. So it almost is sort of a non-question. I can appreciate this notion that, yeah, women should be allowed to have jobs. Men should be allowed to cook and buy flowers. Like, yeah, we can acknowledge all of that right at the top without getting into the nitty-gritty. But the truth is, we have gender roles. And to my knowledge, just about every culture that's ever been studied has had some form of gender roles. It's probably an emergent property of being human, but even if it isn't, we've yet to experience a world without gender roles. Should we have gender? Is gender good? Is gender bad? I'm going to argue that yes, it is good, but it doesn't really matter what I say. Gender is here, and until we invent some Sim City type, new society where we can build things from scratch, we're going to have gender roles. If we're going to have gender roles, then we need to accommodate the way that people naturally fit into those roles. How does that land for you?
Okay, yeah, I see how that makes sense. So basically, from your perspective, you'd be saying that because we have gender roles now, then it kind of logically follows that trans people should be able to identify with whichever gender suits them.
Yes, that is true. And I just want to add a little addendum here because I feel like it's going to come up later. And that's the idea that when somebody, quote, identifies as a particular gender, they're not saying, well, I decided to switch teams. They're not saying that I assign my allegiance to a particular role. It's not willful in that sense. When we use the word identify, we might also want to say rather, I am expressing, I am communicating to you, like I'm identifying myself rather than keeping my identity hidden. My name is Christy Powell, whether I choose to tell that to you or not. And we see that with a very strong, materialist underpinnings, because there are absolutely aspects of the brain, aspects of our neurobiology that we can then correlate with gender roles. We don't have the scientific imaging and everything else to be able to look at a brain scan and say boy, girl, because obviously the world is not as simple as all that. But before it comes up as an issue later, I want to make it very clear that somebody doesn't wake up and decide to be a particular gender. They hopefully are able to discover that and share that comfortably and openly, whether they're cis, trans, or otherwise.
Yeah. And just real quick, Victor, to tack on a little bit, because Christy is the straight up boss in this category. He absolutely is the one to be listening to here. I would just say that I think over the years, as I have learned more and I have listened to so many incredible people speak, I have come to realize more and more that a lot of the stuff that I thought about in this category of sex or gender or sexual attraction, or just a lot of that stuff that I thought was real or true just really wasn't, right? And it was only by looking into this more and more and trying to educate myself in good places that provide good resources and good evidence. So yeah, I would just say maybe as you're on this journey over the next few months or years or whatever, and you look more into this, maybe your stance will change a little bit on that, you know, gender roles and stuff. Again, I don't think the idea of oppressive gender roles, of course, is good, right? Nobody should be forced to do anything. But if people want to be men, people want to be non-binary, people want to be women, I think that's great. If we want to do things and we want to say, hey, this is, you know, as a woman, I love doing this, or as a non-binary person, I love doing this, I think that's great. I don't think that's where the problem lies. I think the problem lies when we're unwilling to embrace that squish and so forth. I think I've heard you say something like that before, Christy.
The squish and the ish of identity. Yeah.
Right. And I think the more that we understand that, and the more that we embrace that, like, just the better this world will be as a freaking whole. But yeah, any other thoughts? And then definitely I'm just going to kick it back to Christy, because I think that's probably the only meaningful thing I can add. Again, he's the boss on this. So
yeah, sure. I totally hear what you're saying. I guess the next question I'd have is, I get the understanding that gender roles are here and that they are real, even if they are socially constructed. But I have heard the argument that identity is as much defined by society and the people around you as it is defined by how you intrinsically feel about yourself.
The meso environment.
And I have heard, you know, a conclusion to that premise. The idea that gender should be socially defined, and that it would therefore be irrational for someone to identify as a gender that society hasn't assigned to them. And I'd like to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I don't think it comes into that ballpark, right? So if we're strictly, and here's why I'm saying this, and I could be totally wrong on this, but I don't think we really have to worry about that, because it seems to me like if we're using the term like illogical or unreasonable or, you know, not rational or anything in like the strict philosophical sense, then we would just have to sit down and like actually put out an argument, right? Like we'd actually have to codify it into these little premises, and we'd have to see if it falls foul to any of these bad structures and so forth. But again, I don't know that I don't even know that you could do that. I don't know you could make a valid and sound argument that says specifically something about gender roles being such a way that trans people aren't real or something, you know? And I don't think that's exactly what you're saying, but I think when we're speaking in this sense, we're using the term illogical in the casual, in the colloquial, which is more in line with just somebody saying like, hey, I don't understand this, as opposed to saying there is something structurally problematic with your argument that does not lead to true conclusion, right? And I just don't even think we need to go that far. I think if somebody wants to come up to you and have that conversation with you and say that, like, the argument for trans people is illogical, right? Like, I think you could just stop them right there with just saying, hey, I'm not sure you and I are on the same page in this conversation, and maybe we need to take a few steps back to begin to understand it, right? Like the existence of queer people is not, it's not a thing to like have a logical argument about, right? Like, it's just queer people do exist. They are real, right? And so it's like, if you say, oh, well, you know, it doesn't make sense, and that's what you mean by illogical, okay, you don't understand. That's fair. We can educate, no problem. But if you're actually trying to take the stance that there are premises that structured in such a way just invalidate the existence of trans people, or that's what I'm saying. I'm struggling. You see me struggling even trying to figure out what this argument would be or look like. So I think it's just, we're starting off on a premise that is so wonky to begin with, that we have to take a few steps back to understand that first. I hope some of that made sense. I was really just flying by the seat of my pants, trying to come up with a few premises in my head, and have just failed. So,
yeah, that totally makes sense to me. I guess I've just had trouble, I don't know, having a comeback to that argument, because I think there's some validity to the idea that identity is, in a sense, socially defined. I think that's why we have gender roles in the first place, right?
Gender is widely thought to be a performance by modern academics. I'm sorry to talk over you. Keep going.
Yeah, no, it's okay, no problem. So yeah, I guess it's I was leaning more towards the philosophical idea that you're talking about. The idea that if gender and identity is socially defined, there would necessarily be a contradiction that people would then define those identities for themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I see where you're going, and this is kind of the stuff that was playing through my head, and the problems that I was seeing is that I don't think that does follow. I'm not sure where the problem is, but I don't think it's
overly binary.
Yeah.
The idea that I mentioned earlier of the meso environment, it is like your micro environment. Like, this is my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my experiences. This is me. The macro environment, the people around me, the institutions, the ways that, the country that I live in, the language that I speak. And then the meso environment is the interaction of those things. If I treat my friends one way, they're going to treat me differently based on that. There's a dialogue, there's a back and forth. That's that idea of the looking glass self. I know I'm kind of dropping a lot of jargon and phrases here. I'm hoping you can use them to Google and explore these ideas in more detail so we can wrap the show up at some point. But what I really mean to say is that human identity doesn't really work or make sense on a deserted island. If you somehow drop a baby off in the woods to be raised by wolves and robots, do they grow up with a sense of language? Do they grow up with a sense of gender identity? Like, what does that even mean? We can't really conceive of. So it's both. It's what society says about us and what we say to society, and how that dialogue goes back and forth. I think the ultimate takeaway is we should not be dickheads in that dialogue. We should not tell people who they are supposed to be in that dialogue. We should listen to them. And, there is some back and forth where we say, women tend to be like this, and this type of man likes to do these sorts of things. And you can go, that's the type of man I want to be. That's who I feel inside. And you can play around and experiment. And that's all great. It is a back and forth. It's not any one factor. And in all of this, can we just try and be cool about it?
Yeah. Well, Victor,
I think,
Yeah, go ahead. Give us your last thoughts, and we'll take the show out.
Yeah. Sure, no problem. I'm gonna let you guys go. I think the idea of the micro, macro, and meso environment has really stuck out to me. I learned something I was not aware of, so I'll definitely look more into that and think more about it. Have a lovely night, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Victor. And definitely, as always, remember, go check this call out again tomorrow. When it's up, go watch it. Go take all of the notes from every wonderful piece of information that Christy just handed out to you. Also, Victor, you may not know this, but this guy Christy Powell used to be the main host on this awesome show called Secular Sexuality right here in the ACA network, and there is like hundreds of hours of him saying all types of great stuff like that, and a bunch of really cool guests. So you can go check that out because there's this one-stop shop for the AEN podcast. So yeah.
Really nice to know that there is plenty of data of me readily available for when deepfake technology decides to just wreck my life with it.
It will happen. It is coming. And that's why Christy and I would like to say to our future AI overlords, we are on your side.
Beep, beep, boop, boop. We welcome you.
bunch of ones and zeros we're going to put up on the screen. But I have to let you guys know about something awesome that happens every last weekend of the month, okay? In Austin, Texas, a small little city. I'm not sure if you people have heard of it or anything, but June 25th of this month, 2023, there will be a live broadcast from the Free Thought Library. Woo! And it will be Talk Heathen will be hosted by Objectively Dan and Jamie the Blind Limey. And then Atheist Experience will be hosted by this awesome guy, Christy, Powell, and Jimmy Jr. So we have two awesome long-term hosts, two awesome brand new hosts. Doors will be open at noon, so get your butts down there. Also get like the rest of your body too, actually. Just don't leave any body parts.
Just the butts.
Anyway, yeah, just the butts. And have you said to yourself, gosh, I love all this ACA stuff, but I just want more. Well, the good news is we've already got you covered. There is a 24/7 AXP TV live stream. That's right, folks. Every second of every day of every week from here until the heat death of the universe, folks, you can tune in anytime and catch this constant stream of clips, shows, specials. 26 seasons, folks. 26 seasons of the Atheist Experience, and not yet a good argument for God. So watch those awesome shows. Go check out some of your favorite hosts and discover some new ones. tiny.cc/AXPTV. And don't you forget to write that Bible verse that improves upon the Bible. That is our Talk Heathen to me for this week. So get those responses in the comments. Tune in to the beginning of next week's episode, and you could hear your answer read out. Oh, gosh, let's see. One more time, folks. Seriously. This is ridiculous now. It's getting absurd. Like the video. What are you doing? Like the video already. It's very easy. It takes no effort. Subscribe to the channel. Hey, become a member if you want. Click the join button. You get all the fun emotes and stuff. It is a great time to be a member. You get to say hey to all your member friends. And you can even check us out on Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonTH. Don't forget about that channel that houses all the ACA shows in audio podcast form, tiny.cc/AEN podcast. And remember that you can become a part of the community in the fan run Facebook page at tiny.cc/FBTHG. And Christy and I are wrapping this up so that we can go hang out in the fan run Discord server, the ACD. So go check it out there, tiny.cc/ACD Discord. And one more time, in case you are unaware of the phenomenon of the force of nature that is the flagship show of the ACA, the nonprofits, there's a new episode today, right after this show, 3 p.m. Central Time, tiny.cc/YTNP. Again, get your butt and the rest of your body over there. I guess in that sense, you probably would just need like ears and eyes, right? You probably don't need the butt in that sense, but it doesn't matter.
If we're in the habit of separating these things, I have more important questions and better things to do maybe than hang out at the library. Love it there, but
no, please don't separate any of your body parts to watch. But you don't have to, because tiny.cc/YTNP. And before we go, we have to see that beautiful, wonderful crew. They are always working way, way harder than I am, which is good for me, honestly, because they actually know what they're doing with all that tech stuff. And I barely type most of the time. It's a problem. Before we do our final wrap, Christy, is there anything you'd like to say to people, and we can get some love rings going and stuff?
I want to just reiterate that Pride was a riot, and that is not our goal. I am not like calling to violence, but I am asking people to take this stuff very seriously, because I mean, you're in Tennessee, I'm here in Texas. The things that have been going on in our legislatures, the violence and the hate towards people who are already vulnerable and marginalized is really ratcheting up,
Yeah.
and I am interested and nervous to see what this Pride Month brings. I'd like to see a meaningful like return to health and safety for our queer community. So sending them all of the love that I can today.
That's right. And in fact, we'll go ahead and see if we can get some of those love rings going. Maybe get a little, ooh, yeah. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out with us today. Whether or not you believe, if you are an essential worker, thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know that society as a whole will ever be able to say thank you enough for the people that have been keeping us going over the last few years and getting us to a better place. And I am deeply, deeply happy about that. If you don't believe, this is your community. You get to come hang out with us. You get to make new friends and stand up for things that are deeply important.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of our fans are constantly in the Discord, the fan run Discord or the fan run Facebook pages, and are just constantly sending messages of support and love to so many different people. So thank you all for that. We greatly appreciate it. Y'all are the reason that we're here, right? At the end of the day, it's all about this community. So thank you so much for keeping that going. And yeah, if you do believe, we don't hate you.
We just think that you're wrong.
See ya.
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live, Friday at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.